Hello, and welcome to Eastgate Community Church. We are so glad you've joined us to listen to this message from our weekend encounter. We pray you are encouraged by what you are about to hear.
All right, good morning, everybody. Doing all right? We're excited to do this, whatever this is going to be. Now, we just wanted to, we've been sharing the last couple weeks. My parents, if you weren't here last week, I encourage you. I don't know if we can see everybody. This is the tallest chairs we could find because we don't have a stage. But if you weren't here last week, to go check out the YouTube channel. And if you don't know how to find that, let me know. It's on our website. All that information's on the offering envelopes here. But go to our YouTube channel and check that out. We titled it Multi-Generational Community. And that's something that's just core here at Eastgate. We have a spread of generations from the very, very new to the well-seasoned people. Well-seasoned, flavorful. And so go and check that out. And so it's just really like a core piece of who we are. And for you guys that are coming in, and even those of us who've been tracking with this thing for a while and been coming in, it's just a good reminder about what we are. And so this morning we want to go in that same vein with another core kind of principle or thing that we're building on here at Eastgate, and that's worship. And so I was going to share, but there's no way I was going to talk about this and not have Rachel as a worship leader, as well as my wife, if you didn't know that, up here with us. And we just wanted to have like a conversation with you guys. And so this is just going to be sharing, talking. We have a couple kind of like leading questions, and we may ask each other questions. If you guys have questions, feel free to jump in. But we just want to put some language to some verbiage and really start building culture around what worship is, because that's different than what most of us have grown up in. That's different than what most of us would think in our minds as church service or worship time. And so we don't want to take for granted that we all kind of are tracking in the same place. And so we just want to give some language to that. And we're learning and growing and figuring this thing out as we go all together as well. So I'll just pray real quick, and then Rachel will take us off. Father, I thank you, Lord. I thank you for your goodness. God, I thank you that you hear. I thank you that you welcome us in to your presence with open arms. Like you're the dad at the end of the street when the prodigal son's returning home. Like you're watching, you're waiting for us all the time, whether we're prodigals or not. Just every day when we wake up, whether you're waiting and you're just waiting, longing for us to come into your presence, and we never have to leave. We can be there with you. And so I just thank you that you're here. Father, I thank you that you're so good to us. Lord, I thank you that you're leading us even now and just giving your heart behind what worship is here at Eastgate, and just what biblical true worship is. And we thank you for that, Lord. I just pray your Holy Spirit would even just be moving as we're speaking and bringing wisdom and understanding and revelation. God, that we even in this kind of setting can engage with you and can talk with you and can hear from you, or we never have to be separated from your presence and your goodness, Lord. And so we just stay connected. We stay one with you, even as we're listening, as we're diving into what worship is and what you've called us into. So we just thank you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Morning.
Good morning, Rachel.
Getting a double dose of the rushes this morning. So I thought we'd just start and just really briefly share kind of who we are and how we got here, because I think that's everyone's question when you meet somebody here. How'd you get here? It's a collaboration of people. Anyway, so Jonathan and I both grew up in church, and me, my whole life, spent in another church here in town. My dad was a pastor there for a while, and I guess I was about 14 in the youth ministry when I started singing, and didn't really have like this overwhelming talent. I just had somebody that saw something simple in me and said, hey, why don't you come and kind of shadow me, and different people would just pour into me and sing harmony parts in my ear and just like walk me through the practicals, and then the spiritual too just mentored me and poured into me. And then all throughout high school and into college, we both went to Christ for the Nations. I just was able to sit under some of the most powerful worship I've ever experienced. And it was interesting because in our day-to-day or in our Sunday to Sunday kind of the like culture of church worship we were used to was just everything you would expect, I guess, just the typical yeah, American church. When you think American church, that's what we were used to. But it's like the Lord would use these different experiences at youth camp or at, at Christ for the Nations or whatever to kind of just throw these pebbles in my pond is what I like to call it, where he kind of disrupts your way of thinking or your heart, and you go, whoa, like what is this thing, and why does it feel so good? And just that you're made for something really, really big. And so about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, we were happily and faithfully serving where we were and just being obedient to the Lord. And it's funny because Scott and Jane were already plugged in here, and they kept telling us, they're like, you're going to end up at Eastgate, which is how you are. And we were like, would you just leave us alone? Like we're fine. And we really were, like, we were just being obedient, trying to stay planted and serve where we were. And the Lord taught us so many things then that we needed now. But they were praying for us, and I know just praying that the Lord would guide us where we needed to be at the right time. And so when that time finally came, we, just realized we were supposed to make this transition we were still meeting house to house at the time. And it was one of those things where it wasn't an immediate, like, we're supposed to be here, like the heavens opened and I just had this like revelation. It was like, I was honestly a little resistant because that was my home and my family, and those people were like family to me, and they still are, a lot of them are, and I grew up there, so I was like, why would I want to leave all that to come? Why would I want to stop leading worship for thousands of people every weekend to sit in somebody's living room? And it's like the Lord just like came crashing through my mind. So it's like, you don't understand. Anyway, so it was just like the most amazing thing. But I remember us sitting down and having that conversation of like praying, when are we supposed to transition? Are we supposed to transition? And the Lord just confirming that. And I remember us saying to each other, like, in 5 years, I want to look more like these people. And that was something that, I didn't have before in a real sense. Like, I wasn't able to look around and go, like, when I looked at the two choices or the two pathways, it's like, in 5 years, I see myself here, or do 5 years, I see myself here. And I said, that's the thing I want to go after. Like, wanted to look more like Jesus, but it was Jesus in all of you that really captured my heart. So that's how we ended up here. And about a year ago, Eric and, when we first came in, Eric and Robbie were leading worship, and it was just so good. It was like everything my heart burned for, again, in somebody's living room. So you're like, I don't know how this works, but it's so cool, and it's everything that my heart longs for. But about a year ago, the Lord just kind of transitioned that baton from Eric to me, and that didn't even make sense because I had just had a baby, and I was like, how is this going to work? Like, how am I going to lead this thing and have a newborn? And you're figuring out life with all of that, and the Lord's grace was just in it, and it's been a joy, and it continues to be a huge privilege just to worship with you and to go there with you. So, is there anything else you want to say about that?
No, all good.
Okay, that's how we got here.
Yeah, that's how we're here. We just wanted to give. So we're talking about worshiping community. And really specifically, what worship is, but then really what Eastgate carries in the midst of that, because worship is a very specific thing, and then we carry a part of that, even regionally, like different, you have different callings and different mandates, you have that on people, and then even churches can carry those different things, so it's all being obedient, and it's all before the Lord, but it can look a little bit different. And so before we even get into those things, I just asked Rachel, would you just talk to us about, like, what is worship? Because it's one of those words you can throw out and everyone has their idea of what worship is, and then you quickly find out, like, we're not even talking about the same thing at all. And so this isn't like Eastgate's version of worship. We really just wanted to look at, and it's not like all-encompassing, that's a huge thing. We could probably spend years talking about what that is. But just at its core, like, what we're going to define worship, and that's going to be what we mean when we're talking about it. And so, Rachel, what is worship? What is biblical worship?
So, the Lord's taken me through a journey of understanding what this is supposed to be, because I think a lot of times we limit what worship is to our experience or maybe the church culture you were always a part of. And I think even over the last 2 years of being here, like I said, the Lord's just kind of smashed through all that and gone, why don't you take it back to what it really is, what the Word says it is, and what you know in your heart it is. And so I think worship, and I know, I'm not saying that half-heartedly, but I know that worship is ministry to the Lord, that it's our vertical expression before him. And that's a big key too. I was even thinking as we were worshiping this morning that one of my biggest struggles coming into the Lord's heart for worship was that I really, in the American church, and I think mainly just the American church, we want our hand to be held kind of through worship. And we're used to people telling us, hey, raise your hands here, and hey, lift your voice, like the word, even from the worship leader going, do this, do this, do this. And I think it's we've removed ourselves from this response to the Lord, and we're going back to this Old Testament model, which isn't even the Lord's model. Like, let's be clear. Even what the Israelites were doing, that wasn't the Lord's original plan. The Lord's original plan was Adam and Eve in the garden, face to face, like we were singing about this morning, face to face before him, no veils, no separation. But the people, that's a whole nother message, but throughout, it's like they couldn't take it. They wouldn't get before his face, and he so longed to be, right there with them, but they wouldn't. They kept putting representatives before them. They kept putting the priests. No, you go and you make sacrifices, and you intercede on our behalf. And the Lord's saying the new covenant and what he originally intended Adam and Eve is, you're the priests. You're the ones that minister to me. You're the temple. And so worship is our response to the Lord. One of my favorite illustrations about like worship and responding to the Lord was something I heard from Jeremy Riddle one time. He's out with Bethel, if you don't know who that is, but he's one of their worship leaders, and he's got like 5 kids, 6 kids, 5. He's got a lot of kids. And he was talking about how whenever he comes home and he says, okay, kids, we're going to go get ice cream, they all lose their minds, right? Anyone who's got children, like ice cream. I mean, to my son right now, it's just when he sees his bottle, it's like, oh, like, but someday it will be ice cream. They lose their minds. They're so excited. And he said, can you imagine if when I walked in and said, we're going to go get ice cream, if one of my kids was like, okay, well, my sibling, they're about this excited, and this one's about this excited, so I'll get like right in the middle, and then that'll be good. And he said, that's how we approach worship so many times. When the presence of the Lord shows up, we go, okay, you're kind of raising your hands, and you're just sitting, so I'm just going to be about here. And we never just allow that pure response, what our heart was just made to respond to the Lord with. We just never allow that to just come forth. We usually filter through what other people think. Yeah. It's all about kind of what the people in the atmosphere are doing, people around you are doing, and the Lord's saying, let's rip all that off, and let's just respond to who he is and his goodness, and not think about it so much. I think we just overthink it a lot. And so that's worship. It's our response to the Lord. It's not limited to your personality. That was a huge thing for me, and something I'm still, if I would be raw and real, it's what I have the hardest time pushing through sometimes when the Lord's challenging me, is stop limiting me to just Rachel's box and to your personality or your upbringing, or my family, we never sang and we never did this together, so that's just not what I'm good at. I don't have a good singing voice, so that's just not what I'm going to do. The Lord's saying, what is your heart? When I come in the room and you just feel like your insides are burning, you all know that feeling when the presence of the Lord shows up. What is it that wants to come out, and just let it out? And it really is that simple.
And you're talking about what, so worship's a vertical expression. We say vertical and like horizontal. So, that's what we've been used to, is like what you're saying, worship leader horizontally leading, like, okay guys, we're gonna do this and here, and it's really like managing people. And so we're saying biblical worship's like straight up. It's just me and Jesus and no one in between. And I think our primarily Rachel's, and then our responsibility as worship leaders are to facilitate that moment. I think in a big way, like prepare that place. Like we're not your representatives in worship, but there's a biblical understanding of Levites, those that the Lord would be created, that the Lord's created and gifted to go before. And we were talking about that last night, and how you look at the model, and the Lord would send out the worshipers, would send out the minstrels before and behind. Really, it was a capping of it, but it's to go and prepare a place, like in the spirit. you want to say it that way. So it opens up and it makes this like fertile ground for everyone, for all of us to come in and just go straight up. But talk some about what like eternal worship, because that's what we've been doing, is trying to take it out, worship out of a cultural understanding, and just really looking at the word. And so like for all eternity, like describe what worship looks like in kind of that whole thing.
Well, I'm excited about the fact that worship's going to be multicultural. I love it. I think one of my the funniest stories, and it just makes me smile now, we've been to the Philippines together, and we went to Africa in 2013, and Mexico. We've been to Mexico, and many more to come, because we have a heart for the nations for sure. But when we were in Africa, that was like, the Philippines is really Americanized, so their worship's very like similar to ours, and they love everything America, so they just want to be us. But Africa, it's like there's so much tribal culture there. I remember one of the first services we had when we were there was in this like dirt hut, and they had this like metal like gear thing, and like one of those metal like triangles that you like ring for the dinner bell, and they were like passing those around, and then these drums in the middle of worship. So like somebody would just go on the drum and somebody else would be on the little triangle, and they were just dancing, and I was like, I was like, Lord, where are you? Because in my mind I was like, worship looks like this, and it was just
Pads
very like
and delays,
yeah,
atmosphere, fog machines. Oh
like,
yeah, fog. That's when the glory comes. You got to fill a fog machine up here when the glory comes.
But it was in that moment, it was just really neat to see the Lord's heart for worship, like we were talking about before, not being limited to even your culture, your nationality. And so I know we talk about it a lot, but if you just kind of go there with us this morning, just picturing for all eternity, not some band in front of you on the stage, but the Lord on his throne in the center, and all the nations and all, are gathered around, and just everyone hits the floor because we can't, stand in his glory. But it's just strange to me that we separate that from where we are now so often, and that we still, and me too, like I'm preaching to the choir here, like the Lord's taking me through these things too, and breaking off these mindsets, but that we still want to outsource our worship. We still want to, like Jonathan was talking about, have we're, the people on the stage, the people playing and singing are the ones that are gonna take care of this part of my Sunday and, my obligation or whatever. And the Lord's saying, he's gearing us up for a kingdom culture, which is what we're going to be engaged in for all eternity. But it's you active, it's you engaging with the Lord, it's you responding to him, it's you hearing what he's saying, because he is saying something specific to you, hearing his heart and then singing it back to him.
And in that eternal perspective, there's things that we see that we can model after. So there is singing, there is physical movement like dancing, banners, trumpets. There's bowing down. There's lifting up hands. There's falling prostrate. So there's these things that we can see, and if you see it in the Word, like it's available to us. But those things aren't just for here and now, but even around that throne, like we were talking about it, I think on Wednesday. Around the throne, and the four living creatures, they sing out worship before the Lord, what they're singing. And then because of the response from that, it's like an explosion goes off, and there's 24 elders around the throne. And because of the living creatures worship, it blows up the 24 elders, and they throw their crowns down. And then whenever you expand it out to when we're all there, and then you have everyone else. It's just like this wake that goes out, and then people just worship. And really, it's not just singing the things that we know here, but it's beholding and seeing and looking, and then from that response, it's awakening stuff. So you're seeing like the beauty of the Lord. You're going, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful, you're so amazing. And then you say, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful, you're so amazing. Like that's worship. You look, you behold, you see, you say, and you give it back to him. And it's an exchange. So do you have anything else on that? So that's worship. At its core, it's ministry before the Lord. It's vertical worship, and it's to the Lord. Like that's what we're gonna call worship. That's kind of our definition here. And so we have two different things. We have what we're going to call a personal or individual worship, whatever the term is. That's your life before the Lord. And then there's corporate worship, and that's when we come together in these times. And so we're going to talk about both of those. But first, just what individual worship is like, and kind of your what that looks like for you, and maybe some of that journey of your personal secret place, like intimacy, life before the Lord looks like.
That definitely is a journey. For those of you that work and have kids, I mean, I have one child, so I'm not going to claim to know all the struggles, but we both work full time, so it's not like we've got 3 hours a day on our personal time to just, I mean, we do, you just have to not sleep, I guess, but it's not like you've got this huge open day that, your only task is to sit before the Lord. That's not our reality. So just saying that so we relate to you, that it is a struggle, but I've just found that in my own life, even, taking that extra step to get up early, sometimes it is like the hardest, like harder than like witnessing or like anything else. It's like getting up early to have your time for the Lord. But I just feel like you will only go, what was I trying to say? If you only go where you've always gone, you will only get what you've always had. And I feel like it's that way in intimacy with the Lord and pressing into the Lord. And so that's been the challenge that he's been putting before me. Because I don't, if we're being honest and real, like it is a struggle, and I don't always come up faithful with it. But when I do, it's like there's so much available in the Spirit. And there's so much that he wants to give you, and so much treasure he wants to give you. And just revelation about who he is. Not just so you can get through your day, but there's just so much available. And I think when I, compare the times or the seasons when I am pressing into that and to when I haven't been faithful with that, it's like everything just aligns whenever you put your priorities in line. And so is that kind of what you're going after?
Yeah, and even just the idea that worship is not reserved for a Sunday or Wednesday, whenever your church service is. Like, worship is your life before the Lord. And we've had speak for us, but I know it's true for so many. We've had it so backwards that it's Sunday to Wednesday to Sunday to Wednesday, and that's when we worship. And we're going to get to there are differences between our individual life of worship before the Lord and corporate worship. There's actually different things that are available to us in personal worship time, or I should say like secret place or intimacy time with the Lord. There's different things that are available in that are not available in a corporate setting. And there are things that are available in the Lord in a corporate setting that aren't available to us in the same way in our personal time before him. But on the secret place deal, I think it's a lost thing that, I was going to say art, but it's not really. It's just relationship before him, but it's something that we just normalized having zero secret place with the Lord. Like, does that make sense? Secret place. That's why I always grew up here. It's when you get up or before you go to. It's just your time. It says, the Pharisees, they pray out in the streets, but you go in your closet and shut the door and pray to your Heavenly Father who knows all things. And so you go, that's what that is, whatever that time looks like. I'm just going to say secret place, that's my word. But it's like we've totally normalized having no life before the Lord, no secret place at all. And that's okay. And it's like, well, we're all busy, and well, it's okay, this and that. But it's like, man, that as a believer, that's it. Like, that's the whole point. Like, that's the whole reason that he died and rose again, and the gospel's preached so that people can come and know him and be before him. And so, what that looks like for us, it's similar things. It can be singing, it's praying, it's reading his word, it's waiting. It's like, that's the other deal that I've just been challenged with like to wait before the Lord. It's just wait patiently, wait before the Lord. What's waiting? Well, what do you do when you get your oil changed? Like, you just sit there. And there's something spiritual, there's something pure and holy that the Lord wants to bring us into by just sitting and not saying anything, like in his presence. Coming in, Father, I'm your son. Sometimes it's just, most of my talking is just getting my head and my heart like lined up with him, because sometimes when we wake up, I'm in my flesh, I'm in my mind, I'm not interested in, it's not like I wake up and I like float up out of bed and just like the glory's like coming out from under my closet at my secret place, and I'm just like, oh Jesus. Most of the time it's like, dear God, Jesus help me.
Coffee.
We absolutely believe in baptism of the Holy Spirit and prayer language, speaking in tongues, and so most of that time is just like like, oh my God, just help, connect me back here, right, right where I'm in line. But it's just getting lined up. It's my soul, body, mind, soul, and spirit just lining up with him. But when you get there, that can sometimes take longer than others. But it's just talking with him. It's looking. It's beholding. It's engaging with him. It's not mainly supplication. It's not mainly, God, I don't have money for my electric bill. Please give us money. God, my kid's sick. Jesus, please heal. That's usually kind of the sum total of our prayer life is, Jesus, I need this thing. But personal worship, secret place is coming, and it's just talking with him. It's just being with him. It's like father and son, or father and daughter, and being there. But you can't not have that place before the Lord. It's not, I want to say it too hard, but it's like never acceptable to not have that time before him. And it's sad, and I just look at so much of my life where it wasn't even present at all. And then you wonder why, you're not where you're supposed to be, if you want to say it that way, with the Lord, or why you see so many things, or, I'm young, but it's scary to me, like the things that I saw when I was a teenager in the Lord, and I thought, oh, one day I'll be there. And then it's like, decades can go by and you're not there anymore. And it's just funny how we continue to, go to the same church for 50 years, never go anywhere in the Lord, and then think, like, one day it'll happen, because it's apparently some external revival that's going to come and launch us. But like, what if it's really just all birthed and born out of the secret place with the Lord? And if we would put any time into that place, like how much acceleration in the things of the Lord, how much relationship, how much love, how real our Christianity would become if we were just before him. And so it looks like just reading the word sometimes, and it's not complicated. There's like no formula, and that's the whole point. It's relationship. So like when me and Rachel go on dates, like we just went the other night, there's not like, okay, Rachel, I'm gonna talk to you for 10 minutes, and then for 5 minutes I'm gonna tell you how beautiful you are, and then we'll just stare at each other's eyes for 5 minutes. Yeah.
5 whole minutes.
Yeah. We could do that later. But that's weird, and that's not what the Lord wants in the secret place either. It's like coming and it's just being led by him, and just do it. We make it so complicated. It's like, oh God, am I doing the right thing? And it's like, I don't know, just open your Bible and read your Bible for 30 minutes and don't, just do it, or come in and just pray, or, pray in the Spirit, or just sit before him. Like, just do something with him and commit to doing that. And so it's just real easy. It's just being with him, and then always, whatever we do, incorporating just listening. Because it's not so much us talking to him as it's him communicating with us and unveiling and revealing.
Yeah, and I think that we were talking about some of this and how we get so caught up on, like, I don't want to be, was it the right word, disingenuine? I don't want to be, like, untrue before the Lord, so I'm just not going to, like, I'm not even going to pray. I'm not even going to, and like what Jonathan's saying, it just correlates so much to relationships in life. And, your spouse, your kids, whoever, a good friend, and that there are going to be days where you don't feel like doing it at all. Like, it's not even like you feel great in the middle of doing it. Maybe you don't feel anything and you walk away and you're like, well, that felt pointless, but you're putting in the time, because it's important to you.
And it sounds weird. It's because he's worthy. Like, if you want a reason, it's that you're worthy. And whether I feel it or not, whenever you're in love, it's like there are plenty of days I don't feel much for her. There's moments that to like, I may not. It's just life. Everyone, you shut up. All of you. Bunch of liars. Making me feel bad for a minute. Yeah.
We've got some family to minister.
Yeah. All of you, you can come share your secrets. There are just times where there's not like this burning fire, and there are times that there are, but it's like, I love her, there's a commitment, there's covenant, there's intimacy, there's relationship that surpasses and far goes beyond feelings and emotions. And so it's okay. The millennial, like one of the descriptive words for millennials, in which some of you are and some of you aren't, but that's like a big thing right now, and it's shaped a lot of our worship culture, is that we want to be authentic, and that keeps us from really engaging with the Lord, because what if you don't even know who you are yet? Like, what if you don't even know what you really look like yet? And what if that's only revealed and unveiled to you when you actually get in the presence of the Lord and know Him? And so that's been my deal, is like, you don't know me yet. Like, I don't know me yet. Like I was praying the other day, is just telling the Lord, I'm not who I'm gonna be yet. It's not because I don't like myself. It's not about that. It's just like when the closer I get to Him, the more I become like Him, and it's not limited to my personality, and so it's not an issue of being unauthentic. It's just love. Love will take you places that are well outside. Like when we met and we're dating, I'm doing, going after someone and pursuing someone in ways that I'd never done that until we met. So it's this whole like world. It's this whole deal where I'm pursuing after Rachel, and I never done that with like my brothers, or that's not a thing. You don't pursue your friend that way. So it's relationally driven. That better be God. And so that's just kind of idea of personal worship. And so for the sake of time, we just really want to share as well what that's personal worship, secret place, intimacy, and then what's corporate worship. And I'm just going to see if Rachel has something to share about why we get together. Because whenever you look at that personal deal, like we were talking this morning with Don and Bobby, it's like, it's so good. Why ever come out from that place? Like whenever you really get there, whether you feel it or not, there's just something just powerful about it. It's like, man. But there's a biblical understanding of corporate worship as well. And so what does that look like? What's corporate worship? How's it different than kind of the secret place, intimacy worship with the Lord?
Yeah. I think that I know that corporate I have to stop saying I know that all the things that we long for as believers and look forward to, the kingdom of the Lord coming to earth. It starts with this personal expression, but when a group of us come together, and we've been doing that in the secret place, and we've been putting Him first, and kind of like I talked about last week, like digging this well with Him, and then we come together and we bring our history and our week to week, our day to day, our moment to moment journey with Him, and then we just all offer it before Him on the altar. That's what moves the heart of the Lord. When your heart moves Him privately, but corporately, when we talk about like revival, when we talk about the Lord coming and shifting and moving things and really shaking things, it's in the context of the body coming together, and each of you have such an important part. And I think that's the biggest thing I want to encourage you with this morning, and I hope you take away, is just knowing that the Lord's inviting you into something greater if you haven't already seen that, but encouraging you to know, like, your worship, it's not just we're just gonna sing for 15 or 45 minutes or whatever and then you can go home. It's like your worship challenges me, and your worship moves the heart of the Lord, and your worship is important in the context of what if what you're bringing and the level of intimacy that you've been cultivating with the Lord, or where the Lord has you, is exactly where maybe somebody else over here is really struggling, and you come in and you just lay it all out on the table before the Lord, and it sparks fire in them, and brings them back to the Lord to go, wow, there's more to be had, and I want to keep pressing in for more. And it's us going there together. But one thing I wrote this morning that I really just wanted to share was So it's each member of the body bringing their history and their expression before the Lord, and together being a burning torch before him in the world. It should be centered around the kingdom culture. We talked about that earlier, but that's the word I keep hearing, is that the Lord's calling us to be a burning torch. He's calling Eastgate to be the burning torch for Rockwall. And, you know, in the word you can read about worship being incense before him, and it being, you know, that he's lighting that thing, and we're going to be, we're representing our, you know, when we come together, we represent our personal expression, but we're representing and interceding for the heart of the Lord for the region, and for this land. And I guess I can get into that too, but if you guys, go ahead.
Just definitely go there. We're going to open up the Bible too, so don't worry if that's bothering you, but just even like biblical examples of it, of corporate, we love God. The corporate example, or biblical examples of corporate worship, or even like the Acts 2 when the Lord comes and sends us fire. It says he said, go wait, and they go up in the upper room. But it's like, why didn't they just all go home? You know, there's 120 of them there. They could have saved the rent or whatever, however they pay for that stuff, and go home. But there's something about, you know, coming into that corporate place and engaging and going after the Lord together, that it opens up, that makes things available, like I said, that you can't necessarily access whenever you're on your own. And there was just some story, I won't go into it, but it was really cool, and it just kind of stuck with me. There was these people worshiping, and it may have been, gosh, I remember now. I just remember the story. It may have even been Eastgate, I don't know. But it's like we were worshiping, and it's like there was someone saying they saw like a hole in the ceiling, and there were just angels all rimmed around looking in. But they weren't just watching, like they were watching and they were saying that's amazing, but they were waiting because they were going out on assignment. And so when someone, not the worship leader, but when someone out here was just like, you know, whatever, you know, or, you know, send awakening, it's like an angel would get that assignment and then like poof, be off. And then someone else would shout out something as they're hearing, as they're beholding, as they're connecting with the heart of the Father, and then angels are being sent like on assignment. And so when we come to, and that can happen privately, but when we come together corporately, there's a sending out. There's like a culmination of the Lord wanting to come and really do something from that place, like do something from our midst. That's just really, really, really good. And so, yeah. Let's talk about, were you going to talk about marrying the land?
Yes. Tom preaches about Isaiah 60 through 62 kind of all throughout there all the time. So if you haven't read it, go and read 60, really starting in like 58 all the way through 62. It's just full of amazing stuff. But specifically, I wanted to hone in on Isaiah 62. So if you want to open that up. Turn to your iPhone, Isaiah chapter 62. I'm reading the Amplified. It just starts in verse 1. I'll read a little bit. For Zion's sake, I, Isaiah, will not be silent, and for Jerusalem's sake, I will not keep quiet until her righteousness and vindication go forth as brightness, and her salvation goes forth like a burning torch. The nations will see your righteousness and vindication by God, and all kings will see your glory, and you will be called by a new name, which the mouth of the Lord will designate. You will also be considered a crown of glory and splendor in the hand of the Lord, and a royal diadem, exceedingly beautiful in the hand of your God. It will no longer be said of you, Judah, Azubah, or abandoned, nor will it any longer be said of your land, Shemama, or desolate. But you will be called Hephzibah, my delight is in her, and your land married, for the Lord delights in you, and to him your land will be married, owned and protected by the Lord. And it goes on with lots of amazing stuff. But I think the biggest thing the Lord's been gripping my heart with since moving into Eastgate and just getting his heart for worship and for Rockwall, because if I'm being honest, until 2 years ago, my like understanding of what the Lord wanted to do, like started and ended with me, and it ended with like my calling. And when I look at it now, it just seems I'm struck with how selfish it was. But that's the reality we live in. Like, I'm just gonna, someday I'm just gonna reach this thing, and then I'm gonna do this thing, and then I'll be doing that thing, and that's like the ultimate. I'll have this title, or I'll have this responsibility, and that's not to downplay when the Lord gives you a prophetic word, and but it's all about bringing His glory, even in those things. And so I was just so hung up on what the Lord had called me to do, and seeing the fulfillment of that it's like I couldn't even see the bigger picture, I think, of what's He want to do in Rockwall, what's He want to do through Eastgate and Rockwall. And this whole passage, I love the first part where it's saying, for Zion's sake, I, Isaiah, will not be silent, and for Jerusalem's sake, I will not keep quiet. So as we start to step into what worship really looks like one-on-one with the Lord, we start to get His heart for things. And again, bring this back to a relational metaphor, if you will. When you get close to someone, you get exposed to what they care about, and a lot of times you start to pick up on those things, like, oh, well, he cares about this. Like, I hadn't seen a sci-fi movie in my whole life before I got married to this guy, and now we're like, the newest one comes out, we're like, an alien movie, let's go. We just, it's like your desires change and your tastes change, but even more than that, like when you encounter the Lord, He should be rubbing off on us, and Rockwall is important to Him, and it's on His heart, and His heart's burning for it, because it's His inheritance. It's the reward of His suffering. And so this verse is saying that, like, when we grasp that, when we begin to grasp His heart, it brings up something in us that says, I'm not going to be silent. I'm not going to cap my worship. I'm not going to bottle up my worship until I see the glory of the Lord move in this city. And so I think that's what we're stepping into now. That's the mandate on us, not just as the worship leaders, but we're calling you into this too. Let's do this together. And let's not be silent. Let's not put a lid on what God wants to do, even in our worship in this place. So maybe, if you're new, maybe you thought that this morning. If you've been here a while, maybe you still think that. I think sometimes, even during our worship times, I'm sitting up there going, okay, Lord, what are you doing? And just waiting on Him. And it can maybe seem a little awkward sometimes, like, what are we doing? We're just they're still playing, they're not singing anything, what are we doing? And our challenge to you is just to engage with the Lord, keep engaging with the Lord, keep pressing in and going, Lord, I'm not gonna be limited by what's going on in the atmosphere, or the fact that there's no words for me to sing on a screen or whatever. Like, I'm gonna engage with your heart, and not just as an expression of what you've been doing in me one-on-one, but I want to know, Lord, what is your heart for this region? What's your heart for our city? And knowing that you're doing things in the Spirit that you may never see the weight of. It's more than just going out and winning souls. Like, that's the overflow of it ultimately, that you'd be so impacted by the Lord that it would overflow into ministering to people. But what we do here is so important regionally, even because we're interceding before the Lord, and we're saying, God, let your kingdom come, let your will come to pass in this place. All the things that you've said prophetically over the city, all the things that, and even in its history of healing and of revival and of the Lord's glory breaking out, like all the things you've destined for us, Lord, we're crying out for those things again and partnering with Him to see it come to pass. But yeah.
And we wanted to give some kind of like verbiage and language to even our culture. And so when you come in here, there's full permission to just go encounter the Lord, to go after Him. You don't have to be singing the same songs that we're singing. Like, I went to another church the other day, and I loved it. The Lord loves that church, so it's nothing to do with that. But it was a different model, it was a different way, and it's like, I was just gone. Like, I wouldn't even sing, and the person in front of me probably was judging me a lot because it was like off key and whatever. But it's like, man, I came full, and I don't need you to like spoon feed me. Like, I'm ready to go. I'm not gonna come be in a service and just like be a part of the program, and I'm going to go. And so you have full permission to go, and if that, whatever that looks like for you. I just asked you to ask the Lord, and we're getting close on time, so I want to share something specific, and this will lead into it. But ask the Lord, the judgments that we've made in past seasons, times of our lives, past churches that we've been in, past experiences in ministry. Your friend that was, real influential in your salvation, or at a time whenever they were kind of, there's so many of these things, like these people in our life that are influential that the Lord uses to like upgrade us. And then everyone's just people. Like I have things that I think that aren't true necessarily, or I have my insecurities and my whatnots. And so whenever you sow those seeds, like in other people's life, it's funny that like you as an individual can grow, like even maybe past where they've allowed their own lives to grow, but you can hold on to like their old judgments, so their old insecurities. And so, we grew up in church, I went to Bible school, like I had judgments galore about how people worshiped. And you had there was we were in CF&I, there was we called it glory ball lady, because she would like be at the front, and she'd like make balls of glory and then throw them at people. And so we just had like a field day with that. It's like, she's insane. And that's strange, but it's like, who cares? I'm getting to the point now where, you walk into church and it's like, oh, glory ball lady's here. Like, I'm not worshiping, this is stupid. And, but it's like, who cares? Like, if she wants to make balls of glory and throw them around, it's like, throw one my way, I guess. I don't know, Yeah. But there's so many, and that's, we were talking about Hannah's CF&I experience last night. It was funny, we have these like moments where these kind of like defining things, but what they really are is, there are a couple different things. They're judgments that we've made that will hold us back from going where the Lord wants us to go. And it's really, whether Glory Ball Lady is real or not, she was displaying a level of hunger that I didn't have, in that time of my life. And so whenever you see someone who's more hungry than you, you have two decisions. You either put them down and degrade them, and you're making a judgment, or you look at your life and go like, man, well, why am I not hungry? And it's not being like someone I've yet to throw a glory ball at anybody. I may never do that, but it's like, Jeff, watch out, buddy.
Jeff's got some glory balls back there.
Yeah.
Glory ball.
Like Street Fighter.
Yeah, dude. That's
Oh, yeah.
Glory ball street.
Like Dragon Ball Z. Yeah. And so I just want to share this piece, and this is more of a challenge. So if you just ask the Lord, even while I'm sharing, what He would say to you in this, because we've made all kinds of judgments ourselves with different people and things we've seen, and I'm not trying to put another judgment on you, but I would like to challenge myself. This has been a challenge to me, challenge us in the Lord. So this isn't coming, don't hear this coming from me, because I don't know your life, and I don't know how, what the Lord's called you to, but I want to challenge us to more. If you want to turn to Psalm 27, I'd like to read something. We'll see. If you're really a stickler about turning over everything, I'm going to read from Psalm 27 real quick, and then Matthew 11. So if you'd like to pull both of those up. I want to paint a little picture and something that the Lord's been showing me and saying here. And this is all to do with worship in the secret place, because there's so much more that's available. And if you just give me a couple minutes, I know we're close to 12, but I really felt strong with this in the Lord. So there's so much more available. And we've, like Rachel said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, expecting different results. I feel like with our worship, with our secret place, and with our corporate worship, we continue to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over, but we expect revival someday, somehow. And it's like, guys, if He hadn't shown up, He's not going to. Like, that's the knock on the head. Like, there has got to be something different. And that's what I just want to encourage us with. Psalm 27, verse 4. I'm reading from an Amplified, so it'll be a little bit different. The one thing I've asked of the Lord, that I will seek, inquire for, and incessantly require, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord, in His presence, all the days of my life, to behold and gaze upon the beauty, the sweet attractiveness, and the delightful loveliness of the Lord, and to meditate, consider, and inquire in His temple. When I was looking up the different words, it's even to seek out and to pursue and to dig up. And so it's the one thing that I have asked of the Lord. And I really feel like there's a one thing requirement that the Lord's asking of us, and he's just making it available to us. Would you readjust your life for one thing? Like, would you come to him with a one thing singular pursuit that's outside of your normal, that's outside of what you would consider being authentic to you, that's certainly beyond what we're doing right now? Because there's just, whether you're spending 3 hours a day, we're going to spend eternity with him. Like, you can't spend too much time with the Father. I mean, and so I just really, I don't know how to say it, except there's just, it's like a moment. So seek me away in the time that I may be found. There's moments that the Lord and the Spirit will make available to us, to where certain things are easily accessible, or there's like an accelerated on-ramp. There's like on-ramps. And I just been feeling like this is an on-ramp kind of time for us. Not that you can't always do this, but he's just, when he's saying it, when he's speaking it, it's just like, listen, he has ears to hear, let him hear. And so there's an on-ramping, one thing, radical, it looks different than your life looks right now, opportunity for us to come and engage with him and even more. And I want to jump to, we're going to come back over here real quick, so hold that place, but jump over to Matthew chapter 11. Jesus is talking about John the Baptist, who was a pretty radical dude. And in verse 12, Matthew chapter 11, verse 12, it says, and from the days, this is in the Amplified again, and in the days of John the Baptist until the present time, the kingdom of heaven has endured violent assault, and violent men seize it by force. And the Amplified expands it here. It says, as a precious prize. A share in the heavenly kingdom is sought with the most ardent zeal and intense exertion. And so that's what the Lord's saying. Where's the ardent zeal and where's the intense exertion in your life in the pursuit after heaven and the pursuit after the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit relationship and intimacy with him? That it has to look different than what it's looked, because there's plenty of times in my life where I could not describe my pursuit of God as intense exertion or ardent zeal. It just wasn't the words that I would be able to explain to that. And so I just feel like there's this pressing in, and there's just not an English word that a positive English word that describes it, except like excessive compulsive, or like almost like a lunatic or a crazy person that's so single-minded and so single-focused that they've like shifted their whole life out of balance to go after this one thing. And so it's usually taken in a negative sense, but it's like Psalm 27, even what Jesus was saying here, he's talking about John the Baptist, who was a nut job, like he was a psycho. He lived out in the wilderness and ate bugs and honey, and it was crazy. But it's like he had a single focus after this man. You know, he's coming to prepare the way that, you know, the Lord was just telling him to prepare this way for this man, and it's Jesus. And that's the same for us, that we're to come and prepare a way, prepare a place for him to come and dwell within our life. And living in the wilderness and eating locusts and honey is just not off the table for what he wants to do. But it looks so different than what our culture and what we've made acceptable looks like. And so that's why I can't put anything on you, and I don't want to do that because I have no idea. But I'm just here to say, and I feel like what the Lord's saying is what we've made acceptable, I don't think is acceptable to heaven, the way we pursued after him. And that just means stuff's going to change, you know, because if it was acceptable, then our life as is would be normal. But there's an unacceptableness before the Lord that he's just saying, like, hey guys, it's the on-ramp season, it's the on-ramp time. Would you look at this thing and shift this around? And you don't have to turn there real quick, because I just want to touch on it briefly. There's a parallel passage in Luke 16 where Jesus is saying a very similar thing, but he's saying it to a different group of people. He's saying it to the Pharisees. And it's Luke 16:16. I'll read it just briefly. It says, until John came, there were the law and the prophets. Since he came, the good news, the gospel of the kingdom of God is being preached, and everyone strives violently to enter in. And I've heard that before, the kingdom of God like self-righteousness, and the people are pressing into it. But it's weird when you start looking at this thing. The Amplified talks about it. You can go break the words down. It's in a different way. And so in Matthew 11, it's good. It's they're violent or taking it by force. It's ardent zeal. It's passion. It's going after it with a singular focus. But when he's talking to the Pharisees, it says, and everyone is striving violently to go into it. And it adds, they would force his own way in rather than God's way into it. And that just like really hit me in the sense that, we are at Eastgate. If you're here, you're not at like normal church, and you may have come from whatever that looks like to you before, but it's easy to like all slap ourselves on the back. It's like, yeah, we're the crazy ones, and we talk about that on Wednesday, like we have worship for an hour and hallelujah, and we're so radical. But it's like, I think even in our personal lives, even for us, especially for us, because this is what he's saying to us, but it's like we want him, we want the greater things, we want all that stuff that we see, all those things that we've heard, all those prophetic words. Like so many of us, if you've been around for a while, you just got tons of prophetic words from different people, and we want all those things, but we want it our way. Like we want to come in illegitimately into the legitimate things that's available to us. And so when he's talking, because he's talking to the Pharisees, like, because they were saying we're sons of Abraham, this is our lineage. They're giving all these reasons, and Jesus is saying no. Like, you don't get to come in that way. You come in my way. And so that's why when he's talking to John did it his way. And so just ask, are we pressing into legitimate things, but in illegitimate ways, and expecting that God will just show up because all we have is 15 minutes every other day, or maybe every third day? It's like, it's just not going to happen. Like, our lives have to shift. And I don't know what that looks like, but they have to shift into being this Psalm 27 reality of one thing I pursue, I desire, I would seek after, I would dig up, I would spend my life and my resources mining out who you are and what you're about. And back to Psalm 27 here, and I'll just land here, and this just hit me so strong as I've been praying this and pursuing the Lord in this thing, is Psalm 27 verse 11. David says, teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me in a plain or straight path because of my enemies. But that teach me and lead me, oh Lord, like it's got to get to a place, and you probably end up at the same place I ended up at. It's like, I don't know, because we've just been doing what we've known, and when he comes and says, like, do your life different, it's like, Lord, what does that look like? I have I have a kid, or I have a job, or I have bunches of kids, or I need a job, or I have money, or I don't, or my life is structured this way, or these people think that thing, and this, and whatnot. And there's so many structures around it, and he just comes and like wants to shatter them, but it just leaves us like, I don't even know what that looks like. And I just feel like this is the answer, is teach me your ways, O Lord, and lead me in your heart. Like, lead me in the ways of your heart. And when you look up teach me, that word, it can also, it has the same idea as an archer shooting an arrow. So it's like lining up and launching out. And then the word lead me is really like a governing word. And so it's like a governmental, like governmentally lead me. Like be the Lord of my life, like be the king of my life. And so, he'll realign, and he'll readjust, he'll pull back, and he'll launch, and then he'll actually govern us in what it looks like to walk in his ways. But he wants to do, I'll finish here. He wants to do so much more, and so much of it is outside of what you would consider your personality. And that's kind of just the one thing I'd say, start there as we're looking at this stuff, with the time and the schedule for sure, but even like your personality. He wants to do something well beyond what you would say your personality is. And I just think of myself, I've had moments, and we won't get into it now, but go back if you've had encounters with the Lord. Who's had an encounter with the Lord? Like, you encountered the presence of the Lord, and it shifted, it did something in your life. Just go back to those moments, and even like in a string together, remember them, write them out, something, look at them all in a string together, and you're going to see a common denominator that you look different in those moments than you usually looked. And I'm starting to see maybe that's who I really am in those brief moments, in those brief glimpses. That's actually Jonathan. But it's like I couldn't control it, so it happened. But then as soon as it's done, it's like, oh man, okay, let's put that's crazy. I don't know who that was at all. That's freaked me out. But what if we don't even know who we are yet. And what if even down to what we would consider our personality is only fully realized in the presence of the Lord and encounter with Him. And so just encourage you, whenever you're going before Him, starting in that secret place, just put your personality aside and say, Lord, teach me, lead me, govern me, align me, and then launch me into what this thing really looks like. And it's gonna be amazing. I saw the other day I encourage you to, just as a little PSA, we do these prayer sets, and if you're ever able to come, we're about to have them almost every day of the work week, morning and lunchtime, but it's just times to come in, and it's just releasing all kinds of stuff and doing all kinds of crazy deals. And I was praying, and I just started seeing keys like on fishing lines, like hanging out of heaven all over Rockwall. And it's just, I knew it was a key of David, and he was releasing keys of David. And if you know what that is, key of David's authority given from the Father to the Son. It talks about it in Isaiah 58, I believe, and it talks about it in Revelation chapter 3. But it's the key of David that opens up doors that no one can shut, and it shuts doors that no one can open. But it's from the place of intimacy, a prayer life, worship. It's David. It's like, he's hard after God. It's the key of David, access through intimacy and relationship. But it's like he was hanging them all down all over the city, and they were just available to anyone who wanted to come up and get them. But it was from this secret place. It was from this like shifting and this radical place of outside of your personality and outside of your box, and really accessing Him in a new way and shifting in our lives. I'll be done. Believers should look different. I just gripped with how much we should look different than we do, but we continue to just slip into the culture. And if you look at even our average homes, do they look any different on a large scale from someone who doesn't even know the Lord? Just not what we believe, not what we've agreed with, not the Bethel tapes that we play, like actually our lifestyle and what we do. Does it look any different than the people around us? You don't go to swingers clubs, and so we could point out some of those deals. You're not beating each other, but just our schedule and the function and the look of our life, does it look any different? It's like, man, when you see Jesus, it's like it should look different. It should be about one thing. And so I'm not putting that, I don't know what that means for you. I just say go do the scariest thing you can do, and just ask Him what that looks like. So go ahead and pray and close real quick. Father, I just thank you, Lord, that there's so much available and so much open to us right now, Lord, and that whatever it looks like, you're just wanting us to come in before your face, God. You're just wanting us to come in and be with you where you are. It's what you've always wanted. It's what you always had in mind for us, Lord. It's not a new idea or a new plan, but you created men and women to be sons and daughters that would just come in and be with you where you are, and walk with you in the cool of the evening, to talk with you, to share life with you, to just know you. And God, I just thank you for that, Lord. I thank you that you know me, and that I know you, and that we walk together, and that you're leading us, you're teaching us, and you're leading us, Lord, that you're aligning us, and that you're governing us as we come to you humbly, Lord, that our lives may not look the way that you want them to right now. And so we're just saying, show us, Lord. Show us what that looks like. Give us a vision of you, Father, that we wouldn't do things out of religion. We wouldn't do things because that's what someone else does. We do things because of love. And so, God, we thank you for that we just get messed up and radically our lives to be shifted because of love. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you for joining us. If you would like to know more about our community, please visit our website at eastgatetx.org.